After a week out, Ric Flair was back on Nitro, coming in front of an hometown crowd at Charlotte while bringing with him a bus full of mental patients on the way to the building. WCW, which had a chance to close the gap with Nitro preempted next week on TNT due to the NBA playoffs, saw several matches in the first hour 6 days from the Slamboree pay-per-view while waiting for Flair's arrival. After 2 matches of Ray and Kidman against the Armstrong brothers and Bagwell vs. Miller going a combined 13 minutes, Flair's limousine and the bus eventually arrived 10 minutes from the top of the hour, with Flair going straight to the ring, getting a mixed reaction while continuing to go crazy, saying that the president is back and calling out Savage, Page, Sting and Goldberg to come out. Flair said that Savage is still not reinstated despite Piper bringing him back last week when he was out, before saying that he's gonna be 15-time champion in Charlotte tonight, as Flair hyped the Control of the Company match against Piper on Sunday with Randy Savage on the way to the ring, with the show going to a commercial break seconds later to set up Savage coming out 2 minutes from 9 p.m. to start the first opposed quarter. Flair fired Savage to start the crossover segment, calling the police to get him out of the building, leading to Savage attacking security before being taken out, with Flair turning to the Slamboree pay-per-view telling the marketing department to change all advertising for the Nash vs. Page title match, as he books himself against Page for the title tonight and will face Nash in the pay-per-view main event. Flair hyped the Sting vs. Goldberg match as the match to find out who is the poster boy of the company between them, bringing them both out with Flair trying to stir things up and turn them against each other, ending up with Goldberg laying out Flair instead and both Sting and Goldberg starting a pull-apart brawl to close the segment, which saw Nitro opening with a 3.7 rating, the peak rating of the night and the closest it came to Raw in the next 2 hours. Four days after the formation of the corporate ministry on the debut episode of SmackDown, Shane and the group opened draw, warning the entire roster of anyone challenging them, giving the microphone to Triple H, cutting a promo on Rock to hype their Over the Edge match, before Undertaker hyped his title match against Austin on the pay-per-view, saying that for the last few months he let Austin go his own way thinking they might be able to coexist, but now it's not gonna happen after he got involved in his business. Shane put himself as the special referee in the Austin-Taker match before Mankind, Shamrock, Big Show and Test came out, with Foley saying that they were all at one point members of the corporation and are now forming a union to go against them, running to the ring to start a brawl, with Raw opening with a 5.4 rating. Both shows stayed steady in the second quarter, with Nitro having a 14-minute Bigelow vs. Hack hardcore match doing a 3.5 rating, while Raw stayed at a 5.4 for the official breakup of DX first, with Billy Gunn vs. X-Pac going 5 minutes with Gunn going over before also turning on Road Dogg post-match, turning heel to start a singles run. With the WWF now having DX left with 2 members, a similar situation was going on with the NWO and the Wolfpack, with both groups almost being written off television, continuing with an angle of Flair offering Stevie Ray $100,000 to take out Nash tonight, setting up Flair's friend hearing an NWO Hollywood conversation and warning Nash about it. The corporate ministry wore back out 15 minutes from their opening segment, with Shane changing the plans for tonight due to the formation of the Union, booking one of the most loaded cards in Raw history with Shamrock vs. Triple H with Chyna as referee, the first ever Taker vs. Big Show match, and a Rock vs. Austin Lumberjack match in the main event, before bringing out the rest of the McMahon family to the ring. Vince told Shane that he's going too far, leading to Shane challenging him to a match tonight, with Shane confronting Linda and revealing that he was behind Taker kidnapping Stephanie, setting up Vince going after Shane and agreeing to the match, with this segment jumping big with over 1.4 million viewers to a first-hour high 6.7 rating. After dropping to a first-hour low 3 rating, Nitro had its biggest viewership gain of the night with a series of backstage skits, first with Ric Flair calling David to his office to solve their issues, telling him that he wants him to wrestle on the show tonight before double-crossing him, picking Meng as his opponent, while minutes later Roddy Piper arrived to the building immediately searching for Flair before finding him in the locker room to start a brawl 6 days from their control of the company match, with the quarter to close out the first hour between 9:45 to 10 p.m. jumping over 700,000 viewers to a 3.6 rating, the highest rated segment of the night after the opening quarter. Raw closed out the first hour with 2 matches of Patterson and Briscoe taking out the Posse, and Test going over 3 members of the corporate ministry in a 4 corners match. With the WrestleMania 15 pay-per-view increasing in the latest press release from the WWF posting about the show doing over 875,000 buys, the most pay-per-view buys for a wrestling event by over a 100,000 buys distance. Reports from cable companies came out on wrestling pay-per-view during the first quarter of 1999 drawing over 40% of the total pay-per-view business, generating a record $84 million for the 8 shows during the period. Following the Piper-Flair angle, Nitro opened its third hour with Flair asking Scott Steiner to help him take out Nash, with Steiner searching for him in the locker room to instead find Bagwell 6 days before their Slamboree match, followed by Meng vs. David Flair in a squash going 3 minutes, with Nitro's third hour overall going against a record audience on Raw dropped to one of its lowest rated hours in the last 2 years, doing a 2.8. The Vince vs. Shane match opened Raw's second hour, bumping the show back to a 6.6 rating, starting with Shane in control after Vince was attacked by Taker and Hunter a few minutes earlier, setting up a Vince comeback with him going over with a stunner to a huge reaction, as Raw's 10 to 11 p.m. hour in general didn't drop again below a 6.6 rating, making it the highest rated opposed hour in history with a 6.9. Page was out next on Nitro, hyping the main event against Flair later tonight, saying that the difference in the match would be that he is in his prime and Flair is not, with the crowd in Charlotte expected to be heavily pro-Flair in the heel versus heel match. Going against it, Raw had the continuation of the Union vs. Corporate Ministry series of matches, first with the second half of Mankind against the Acolytes going 6 minutes in a hardcore handicap match, and Triple H vs. Shamrock going 7. Maintaining a 6.7 to 2.9 rating gap between the shows. The 7th quarter saw the gap reaching new levels as WCW took 2 commercial breaks and only featured a 2-minute Booker vs. Kurt Hennig match during the quarter, while Raw had the finish of Shamrock vs. Hunter in the hyped first time ever Taker vs. Big Show match, leading to Raw gaining over 800,000 viewers to more than triple Nitro's audience with a 7.3 to 2.4 rating gap, as after holding the record since October '98, Raw's Taker vs. Show match broke the record 7.2 rating set by the Goldberg vs. Page Havoc replay match to draw the highest rated opposed quarter in history with a 7.3, along with another record of 4.9 rating points separating the shows between 10:30 to 45, ending up with Taker smashing a bat on Show's head for the finish. Nitro rebounded over 700,000 viewers from the show to a 3 rating in the final quarter for the first half of Page vs. Flair, but the gap between the shows remained at near record levels, with Raw having a promoted Sable vs. Deborah match that ended up with Sable sending out Nicole Buss instead, and the entrances of the Austin Rock Lumberjack match. The past week saw another head-to-head battle between the companies on Thursday, with the debut episode of SmackDown going head-to-head with Thunder, with the WWF loading up the show with all the top names and hyped segments and matches, leading to the show drawing a 4 rating and over 5.5 million viewers on the company's return to network television, well above what UPN usually averages in that time slot, which almost guaranteed SmackDown becoming a permanent weekly show in the next few months. Going against it, WCW fell to an all-time record low 2.6 rating, the lowest rated Thunder episode on its regular Thursday time slot in history. Flair and Page went 13 minutes in the main event, crossing over a 7-minute overrun including 2 minutes unopposed, ending with Randy Savage again interfering to bail Page out for the finish, with the show mainly due to going off the air at 11:07 p.m. 2 minutes after Raw maintained a 3 rating. The Rock vs. Austin Lumberjack match immediately turned into a brawl, with both taking out every member of the corporate ministry, setting up the focus on the top 2 programs with a 4-way brawl of Austin vs. Taker and Rock vs. Hunter, closing the show with both Rock and Austin thrown off the stage through tables, with the overrun jumping over 900,000 viewers to a peak 7.4 rating, as Raw with a loaded show jumped back into a near-record 6.4 rating overall, with every record in history expected to be shattered next Monday, with Raw going unopposed with massive momentum. With Raw last week drawing its joint second highest rating in history, going head-to-head with Nitro with momentum trending upwards, all signs were pointing to May 10, 1999 as the night all records will be shattered to unreachable levels, with Raw having the entire wrestling viewership available on Monday night for the first time since last May. The corporate ministry and union arrived to the Orlando Arena, building up a confrontation between the groups for later in the show, with Raw continuing the recent format change of starting the show with a match and instead have a massive viewership gain for the Big Star Power promo segment in the second quarter, opening with a Kane vs. Billy Gunn match going 5 minutes, with Raw already breaking records from the first quarter, starting with its highest ever opening audience with a 6.7 rating and over 7.4 million viewers. Vince McMahon and the Union were out next, with Vince cutting a promo on Shane saying that he turned his back on the family and calling him and the corporate ministry out to the ring, as Shane responded that he doesn't need Vince's family, just as Shawn Michaels appeared on the Titantron, looking to top the loaded card Shane booked last week with a unique lineup of 8 matches for tonight. Michaels first added Vince as the second special referee to the Austin Taker Over the Edge title match, before going on to book several corporation versus union matches, with the main event featuring a big star power six-man tag match with Rock, Austin and Vince against Taker, Hunter and Shane, before revealing himself under the security mask in the building as the special referee, with this segment bumping Raw over 1.3 million viewers to a record 7.8 rating. With the highest-rated quarter in history set just last week during a Taker vs. Big Show match doing a 7.3 rating, Raw entered territory never seen before next with the first segment to ever reach the 8 rating mark, featuring Big Show vs. Paul Bearer with Show calling out Undertaker to the ring to another faction's brawl, along with the Sable vs. Deborah evening gown match promoted last week with Michaels putting the stipulation of Deborah winning the belt if Sable doesn't show up, in what would end up being Sable's last appearance in her original run with the company, leaving as one of the biggest viewership movers in the business before going on to sue McMahon for over $100 million in the next few months, with Raw's third quarter jumping to an 8.2 rating and over 9.1 million viewers, becoming the first quarter in history to cross both rating and viewership marks, with Raw not dropping below the 8 rating mark for the rest of the night. Over an hour before Raw went on the air on the USA Network, the company taped several matches for the weekend TV shows, with the only match taped which didn't make the air being Owen Hart vs. Kurt Angle. Angle, who made his TV debut 2 months earlier on Heat from his hometown of Pittsburgh, was regularly working dark matches on the road on TV tapings and house shows in preparation to his official debut in the next few months. Raw closed out the first hour with a Test vs. Bossman Nightstick on a pole match going 7 minutes, with the top of the hour quarter seeing the return of Cactus Jack in a hardcore handicap match, with the show continuing to climb in viewership in every segment, reaching 8.3 to 8.4 ratings and over 9.4 million viewers. Raw continued to set new milestones with the biggest quarter coming between 10:15 to 10:30, featuring 2 matches in the quarter, first with the Acolytes Lumberjack match with Farouk and Bradshaw trying to talk each other out of it before both going for the swerve to start the match, while minutes later the second match saw the Posse facing Patterson and Briscoe in a loser leaves the company match, with Patterson and Briscoe coming out to Hulk Hogan's Real American entrance song to a big reaction, with Briscoe, who made a reference earlier to beating Flair, using the figure 4 for the finish to end with Patterson doing the Hogan posing routine, as the quarter, which jumps to an 8.6 rating and around 9.8 million viewers, became the highest rated quarter in wrestling cable TV history. Raw had its longest match of the night next, with Val Venis vs. Jeff Jarrett going 8 minutes, after the last few weeks of build ending with Deborah turning on Val to cost him the match. With WCW coming off the Slamboree pay-per-view last night and only coming back to television next Monday due to the upcoming Thunder episode already taped on April 30th, Raw faced competition from the NBA playoffs during the regular WCW timeslot from 9 to 11, with 2 NBA games on TNT drawing 1.2 and 1.4 rating, combined not doing close to the regular Nitro viewership, and with Raw on the night drawing 7 times the viewership head-to-head. Raw's final quarter opened with a Shamrock vs. Chyna match, as Raw remained over 9.4 million viewers for the entire second hour, with the show overall gaining over 50% of the WCW viewership from last Monday. The main event entrances took place at 10:55 p.m. with both Rock and Austin, similar to last week, making their first appearances on the night almost past 11 p.m., with the match crossing into the overrun, gaining over a million viewers to a record-breaking 9.2 rating and over 10.4 million viewers, making it the highest-rated and most-watched segment of wrestling on cable television in history, and the highest viewership for a single wrestling show in general since the WWF's Saturday Night Main Event NBC specials in the early 90s. The match turned into a three-way brawl between the top three programs, with Austin vs. Taker, Rock vs. Hunter, and Vince vs. Shane, ending up with Austin taking out Shane to close the show, as Raw surpassed all expectations, drawing a huge 8.1 rating, one of the highest-rated weekly shows in cable history for any genre, with the massive number getting the company big media coverage across the board, averaging over 9.1 million viewers for the entire 2-hour program.
Thank all of you for making Raw as more last week the highest rated regularly scheduled entertainment program in cable TV history. Wow.
Seven days after Raw shattered all records on May 10, WCW returned to its regular time slot after a week out in bad timing due to the NBA playoffs. With Raw as hot as any show in cable TV history, WCW needed no more disadvantages, as traditionally it took shows several weeks to get the full audience back after breaking the viewing habit. Ric Flair opened the show arriving in a limousine with Anderson, Page and Robinson, saying that Eric Bischoff had no authority to change the match result against Piper at Slamboree, and he's still the WCW president, booking a mixed tag match with Flair and Robinson against Randy Savage for later. Flair said that Eric also had no authority to change the call in the main event and booking a Nash vs. Page rematch for the belt tonight. In a series of semi-shoot interviews throughout the first hour, Eric Bischoff as a babyface acknowledged WCW's position as the now #2 company in the world, saying that after working so hard to make WCW the top company and dominating the industry, they got complacent and mistakes were made, but they learned from it and know what it took to make the organization what it has become since taking over in '93, saying that they have the performers and committed employees to make it #1 again. Eric then went over to storylines with Piper and Eric Shown arriving minutes later. WCW planned a major crossover angle as Nash was on The Tonight Show Friday night challenging Bret Hart. The appearance was originally scheduled to be with Goldberg calling out Bret after their angle in Toronto on March 29, with Bret returning to injure Goldberg on May 9. But Goldberg, who was in the middle of big contract dispute with the company over his pay, was legit injured and didn't come with Nash on the show. Nash said that since Bret won't wrestle him at WCW, he will put up $250,000 and they fight on The Tonight Show next Monday night. Bret appeared on The Tonight Show days later cutting a promo on Nash, saying that he beat him every time they wrestled and accepted the challenge, with Goldberg set to be involved before being written off for a knee surgery. As it turned out, the match and angle with all three will be cancelled due to the Owen tragedy on Sunday night, with Bret finding out about the accident while on the plane to LA for the match, and immediately flying back home to Calgary. Flair in a comedic segment said that every promoter in history was pushing their son, so since he's the greatest ever he's going to push his son down people's throat while buying out David's match. The Savage Flair mixed tag match was placed to start at 9 p.m. in one of Savage's first matches back in almost a year. The match ended up a big success in several aspects, as in one of the few rare times in history, WCW maintained the entire unopposed audience it had in the first hour to start with a 4.3 rating, while in the ring the match was well executed with the crowd into it from start to finish, popping big for the comedy spots of Flair and Lil Nage, and giving Savage a big ovation as he entered the ring before popping huge for the finish. Raw on May 17 started with the question of how do you top it now, with motivation and performance at all-time high between the talent and creative departments. The company was planning to follow it up with one of the most stacked shows in history, announcing from the start two big main events for tonight with Austin against Triple H, and Rock vs. Taker. Raw started with a tag match of DX and Kane against Billy Gunn, D'Lo and Henry, going around 6 minutes until the match was interrupted by the corporate ministry coming out. Shane said that tonight they will annihilate all in their path, hinting at them taking out the Union before arriving at the building, and saying that they have 3 people on their hit list targeting Vince, Rock and Austin, while telling Vince to lock the door as they're coming for him first. After the relatively close first segment, WCW remained within competitive range with a big star power segment of Piper, Bischoff, Savage, and Nash. With Piper saying that he is the president before calling out Eric. Piper cut a promo on Eric saying that he was responsible for the NWO running over the company for years and he doesn't buy his sudden change. Eric said that he apologized for the past and asked to be judged on what he does next as Randy Savage came out. Savage said that he never liked Eric and doesn't now, before asking for a title match with Nash, ending up with him dropping both Piper and Eric until Nash came out. Savage said that he should hand him the belt like he did at the Georgia Dome, with Nash responding saying that then it was political and now he will have to take it. The corporate ministry began their night by taking out Vince, isolated backstage with Patterson and Briscoe. Taker came out through the back door of his room. As the screen faded to black with Vince sounded beaten and doing an injury angle in an ambulance. Next on Raw was a tag match of the Blue Blazer Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett against Godfather and Val going 4 minutes, in what will tragically be the final Raw appearance of Owen. Against it WCW had Hack against Finlay going 9 minutes in a hardcore match. From that point on it was never close again as Raw jumped over 1 million viewers in the third quarter, featuring the end of the tag match, Test against Meat and the arrivals of Rock and Austin. WCW's last significant boost of the night came with the end of the Hack-Finlay match, and Sting against Trick Steiner in a new heel character teaming back with Scott with Luger making the save for Sting, in a match originally scheduled to be against Booker, jumping around 600,000 viewers. Austin came out to a huge reaction for a promo 10 minutes from the top of the hour, hyping his match with Hunter tonight along with the over-the-edge main event against Taker on Sunday, saying that he will take out anyone from the corporate ministry as Shane and the full group came out on stage. Shane told Austin that he will disqualify him and award the belt to Taker the moment he gets near him, telling Austin that he might meet Vince tonight in the hospital while sending the group to take him out. As that was going, Shamrock came from behind to put Shane in a hold as the Union ran out for a brawl, distracting everyone, ending up with Austin getting Paul Bearer alone in the ring. The second hour saw the gap increase to previously unthinkable levels as Raw picked up huge with record-setting viewership. Raw's peak quarter of the night came at the top of the hour for the Rock vs. Taker casket match, gaining big with over 1.3 million viewers to a record-setting 7.3 rating, making it the highest-rated segment in Monday Night War's history. Rock came out to a massive ovation from a hometown crowd at Fort Lauderdale, going 4 minutes with Taker until having the match won as Triple H ran out, with both Taker and Hunter attacking the injured arm and shooting a major injury angle, with Hunter smashing the casket with the sledgehammer, as JR and King sold the injury big with updates coming up. Conan vs. Kurt Hennig. A 13-minute match was on TNT, ending with Savage coming out to attack Conan as a message to Nash, while Raw remained at all-time peak levels with a 7.1 rating for the follow-up on Rock's condition, showing him bleeding from a head injury and taken out in an ambulance outside the building, along with a Brood vs. Hardy Boys match, putting on a strong performance from all involved with impressive spots that would be a sign of things to come, with both teams set to top themselves in almost every match against each other going forward, in what will end up as an all-time career-making series. Both companies were featured on USA Today during the week heading into the Monday shows, with WCW taking a full-page ad with a picture of Nash with the WCW title from the Slamboree pay-per-view, while WWF took out an ad on the record-breaking 8.1 rating Raw set on Monday night. The company noted the all-time viewership as the May 10th Raw was the most-watched weekly program in the history of cable television, in addition to comparing it with the NBA playoffs numbers, saying that the WWF slam dunks the NBA, as Raw, despite being on cable, was the most-watched program on television in the 18 to 34 demographic, with the astronomical rating getting mainstream media coverage on sports and entertainment programs. With Rock and Vince now out of the building, the corporate ministry tried to take out the third target, with Austin doing an interview backstage, until they were interrupted by the Union and driving off after them. WCW had a strong tag match with Benoit and Malenko against Raven and Saturn, going 17 minutes just before the main event, with Nash and Page in the Slamboree rematch coming up next, making their entrances at 10:54 p.m. head up with the Austin Triple H match on USA, which started 4 minutes before it. Steve Austin vs. Triple H went around 10 minutes in a match hyped big by JR throughout the show, bumping Raw back up around 800,000 viewers into the 7 range with a 7.1 rating. With Raw's overall second hour drawing a 7.1, making it the single highest rated hour in Monday Night War's history, and outside of last week's unopposed show, the biggest in cable TV history overall. Entering the overrun, WCW had the continuation of the title match with Nash and Page going 6 minutes until Randy Savage ran in attacking Nash, with Savage, Page and Bigelow beating down Nash in the post-match with Savage painting his face with lipstick. As that was happening, fans were trying to jump the guardrail with security missing one who got to the ring, as Savage jumped up and took down the fan until security got him out as Savage returned to Nash, giving him the elbow drop to close the show. The Austin Triple H match abruptly ended as Taker's symbol came down from the ceiling. Taker came out to tie Austin as the Ministry and Union were back in the building with another brawl. Austin ended up handcuffing Taker to the symbol and raising him to the roof in a spectacular visual to close the show. With Raw going 6 minutes and the overrun including a minute unopposed picked up big for the duration of it with around 900,000 viewers for a 7.8 rating, closing the show with another huge audience and big momentum going into the Over the Edge pay-per-view Sunday. On May 23, 1999, the industry lost one of its most loved and respected performers in history, legend Owen Hart, after a tragic incident at Kansas City's Kemper Arena the night before. The decision was made to dedicate the show to a special 2-hour tribute for Owen. Some speculation regarding the decision was that WWF were doing it in part to draw a rating, as part of the Monday competition against WCW. Noting how the company's two biggest stars, The Rock and Steve Austin, weren't appearing until the final 5 minutes of the show. That was quickly dismissed by the company and the talent roster, who used this platform to pay tribute to one of the most loved colleagues ever in the business. In such a competitive environment, it's usually impossible to find a consensus. With his unique personality and respect earned, Owen Hart was a consensus. Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler promoted 10 matches for the night, with the main thing being the roster sharing their feeling and stories of Owen, creating one of the realest and saddest shows in history. To emphasize the uniqueness of the situation, the first quarter-hour rating of the show, with a 7.3 rating, was the highest-rated opening segment in company history. As usually, the shows were starting with the base audience and growing throughout. This time the entire audience was there from the first minute. WCW opened with Owen tribute and mentioned him several times throughout the broadcast. WCW's unopposed hour was built on promoting Randy Savage's new character and feud with champion Nash, the return of Hogan from his knee surgery, and the Flair, Piper, Bischoff storyline. After 3 years as a heel, Eric Bischoff was about to return as a babyface alongside Piper in a feud with President Ric Flair, who turned heel. Promoting a Flair vs. Piper match for the pay-per-view, along with a 6-man tag for the main event. WCW's biggest quarter of the night was the return of Hogan, along with a savaging Nash segment right after. Hogan in his promo promised to return to get his revenge on Dallas Page, with him also taking a shot and referring to a XXX porno wrestling on the other channel. One of the most memorable tributes to Owen was real-life friend, and tag partner at the time Jeff Jarrett, who worked alongside Owen and Deborah for months on the road, both crying on the way to the ring and in their tributes. After entering the business with the spotlight of the roster, Rock credited and never forgot brothers Owen and Bret Hart, for always being there for him as a rookie from day one. Later traveling and teaming with Owen as part of the Nation, Rock paid tribute to Owen with a live promo. Steve Austin did a beer salute, with JR and King closing the emotional show. Raw did its highest head-to-head rating in history with a 7.1. Eight days after the tragedy, the industry was still trying to get back on track with countless high-profile media interviews during the week coming on the day of Owen's funeral in Calgary. WCW, coming from the huge Astrodome in Houston, Texas in front of over 15,000 people, started with Raven arriving before being attacked by Page and Bigelow outside the stadium. 5 months after his life and career-threatening car accident, Eddie Guerrero made his television return, joining the commentary team talking about his injuries and the road to recovery and return to the ring, with the company showing pictures of his crushed car. Eddie said that he's now not taking anything for granted, thanking the fans and office for their wishes in his recovery of major head, knee and liver injuries. WCW's Unopposed Hour saw Page and Bigelow coming out to challenge Saturn and Canyon for the tag belts tonight, along with Page responding to Hogan's return last week. Closing the hour with Curt Hennig coming out to confront DJ Ren and singing country songs to go against his rap, until Conan and Ray came out to set up a match for later. Roddy Piper came out to open the second hour, calling out Dean Malenko after the start of the split of him and Benoit from the Horsemen. Piper put over Dean as Flair and Anderson walked to the ring. Malenko said that him and Benoit were standing behind Flair and his ego week after week, but now it's about passing the torch and looking to the future of the performers that will carry the company into the new millennium. Flair responded saying that until he sees someone who can carry it, he's not passing any torch, ending up with a Flair-Piper brawl, with the segment doing a 3.7 rating, the closest competitive quarter of the show. With Raw taped on May 25, just 2 days after the tragedy, the big talking point of the night happened seconds before the Raw opening even aired, as the company showed footage from Owen's funeral from earlier in the day in Calgary, showing the McMahon family, the talent roster and staff members who almost all flew in for the day at the funeral, along with a tribute to Owen with messages on buses and limousines. With personal business rivalries put aside, as Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior among others were all present and shown meeting with McMahon, in what would also be the first meeting of Bret Hart and McMahon since Montreal in November '97, having a conversation that will later turn into a personal public back and forth between them over what was said in the face-to-face meeting. The controversy started as, according to Owen's widow Martha, she specifically told McMahon and head of the company's Canada business Carl DeMarco, not to air any footage from the funeral on any of their television programs, saying that airing footage is self-serving and she was repulsed by it. Vince McMahon responded days later in a letter which included him going into detail about the cost the company covered in the funeral and transportation, saying that he spoke to Martha several times and at no time during their conversation she asked not to show the footage, but did say that she told DeMarco that she prefers no footage to be aired. Vince said that in later conversations and with media from all over the world at the funeral, it was agreed that it will only be appropriate to show footage on the company program as in a way for fans who love Doe and to get closure and say goodbye. Martha's response came a day later saying that no agreement has ever taken place, saying that she talked to DeMarco after the footage was aired and he said that he can't believe McMahon did this, as the public back and forth on perhaps the saddest day the industry has ever seen looked to be far from over. King and JR then introduced the audience to Raw, saying that they're going to come back in a big way right after a commercial break, with the company getting back to the follow-up of TV storylines from Over the Edge last Sunday. WCW had the Conan and Ray vs Hennigan Duncan tag match, along with Randy Savage coming out teasing a match against Nash for tonight, saying that he's heard that Nash arrived at the Astrodome and can't wait until the pay-per-view. Raw's opening segment saw Vince McMahon coming out to confront the corporate ministry, saying that after everything Taker put his family through in the last few months, he's challenging him for tonight, along with booking a Taker vs Austin rematch for the belt in the main event. Shane said the belt will be on the line only if Vince beats Taker, and if he loses Austin will never get a title shot again, ending the segment in a brawl with the Union coming out and Austin revealing himself as one of the Druids. With Bret Hart on his way to the Tonight Show appearance with Nash and Goldberg last week, Bischoff met him at the airport to send his condolences, telling him to take as much time off as he needs before coming back. With Bret doing interviews all over the media in the week after the tragedy including on Larry King, he praised Eric's handling of the situation as compared with McMahon, with Eric immediately chartering an airplane at the company's expense to fly him back to Canada, saying that when his brother Dean died while he was working for McMahon, Vince told him to work his scheduled match before flying home. As well as talking about the dangers and consequences of the promotional war going on in wrestling right now. Eric joined commentary in the second hour making constant shoot and worked shoot comments, as WCW had the Battle of the Pushed Promoters' Sons with David Flair against Eric Watts, with Bischoff on commentary playing off that burying Bill Watts' early 90s WCW regime while saying that David needs to go to the power plant for a few years before he's ready. After weeks of skits building up the character, Beaver Cleavage was set for his debut match coming out with his mom against Christian. With Owen reportedly set to beat Godfather in their match at Over the Edge, tag partner Jeff Jarrett was booked in the match that was supposed to happen last Sunday, with Jarrett instead going over to win the IC belt. Undertaker and Vince came out for their match minutes before the top of the hour, with the start of the match along with the Godfather Jarrett match gaining big with around 1 million viewers to a 6.5 rating. Starting with Taker dominating until pushing the ref for a DQ finish as Austin was watching on the monitor, making the title match official for later. WCW jumped around 1 million viewers back at the top of the hour for Randy Savage's promoted match with Nash, ending up with Savage bringing out a Nash imposter with a replica belt, with Team Madness beating him for 2 minutes. With Austin vs Taker set along with reactions from Austin and Shane, Mankind came out calling out Triple H for a hardcore match while cutting a comedic promo on China. In probably the most notable comment from Eric on commentary, Tony asked Eric about his appearance on Larry King during the week, which also hosted Governor Jesse Ventura, leading to Eric cutting a shoot promo on Ventura saying that he's a joke and a good politician who talks from both sides of his mouth depending on the situation, saying that he will be a mid-card player in wrestling today but talks like he's an expert and the greatest thing to happen to the industry. Both companies had tag title matches head-to-head. WCW had Perry Saturn going against both Page and Bigelow for 11 minutes, while Raw had the Acolytes going over Kane and X-Pac. WCW's big segment of the night was next as Randy Savage was about to leave the stadium and the parking lot before his limousine was blocked by two trucks, with Nash coming out of a septic truck, filling the limousine with sewage through the sunroof in a funny skit 2 weeks from their Great American Bash main event. If everything that was going on since last Sunday wasn't enough, Sable announced her departure from the company while filing an over $100 million lawsuit against McMahon. Sable, who was one of the biggest TV draws in the business along with being one of the most recognizable names to the mass audience, left on bad terms after reportedly months of disagreements creatively and financially. Mankind and Hunter went 6 minutes in a hardcore match, in what is expected to be Foley's last match in a while, going against the entrances and first minute of the WCW main event cage match. Raw's peak segment of the night came at the final quarter with the end of the Mankind Triple H match, with Rock in his only appearance on the show, running and attacking Hunter, with Mick Foley doing an injury angle with him scheduled to take a few months off due to a legit knee surgery coming up, along with the first half of the 7-minute Austin Taker title match, with the end of it in the post-match overrun segment gaining around 700,000 viewers, more to a 7.3 for the teased reveal of the greater power. Sting and Rick Steiner went 6 minutes in the main event cage match, ending up with new signing Tank Abbott, who was heavily hyped throughout the show, turning on Sting to end the match, bumping around 500,000 viewers for the cage main event. The corporate ministry ran in to tie Austin in the ropes for the big reveal, bringing out the mystery leader of the group, who only revealed himself to Austin, selling big with a shocking reaction to build the legit reveal, as the company were looking to relaunch back to business after the last 2 weeks, hyping one of the biggest Raw shows of the year for next Monday.